Welcome to You Can Talk to Me, a Beatles podcast. It's time to make our way across the universe and talk all things John, Paul, George and Ringo.
Welcome along to an all-new episode. Michael Croaker with you. Good to have your company. This week, continuing our Meet the Beatlegs series, where we sit with each member of one of Australia's leading Beatles tribute bands and discuss the impact and the influence of the music of the Fab Four. Last week we met Paul Van Acker, who plays Paul, and founding member Sean Croaker, who plays John. This time around, it's Sam Croaker, who plays George. Now, Sam is Sean's son, my nephew, and an artist in his own right. He is the driving force behind Echo Wave. This is a beautiful blend of Beach Boys, Beatles, Nilsson, and so much more. Now, this is not a shameless plug for a family member, but a genuine musical recommendation to take some time across the usual music streaming platforms to wrap your ears around Echo Wave. I promise you'll be very glad that you did. Now, Sam is a gifted multi-instrumentalist and a stellar guitarist. In this episode, we talk all things George, his writing, his vocals, and of course, his playing. We even had an acoustic guitar close by, so stick around for those moments. Sean and myself sat with Sam, and I began by asking about the impact of the music of the Beatles on his own creative life.
I've loved the music ever since I can remember, so playing those songs, it's amazing to do it.
It's in your DNA.
Yeah.
You grew up in a house that was filled with music, surrounded by guitars and drums. Can you remember the first instrument you were drawn to and why it drew you?
I think the first one was drums, really. I think that was the first instrument I got. I got a little toy kit.
Yeah.
I don't think I can remember what was appealing about it at first, but I think it was just the fact that I could sit there with sticks in my hand and just bang on stuff.
Make noise.
And make noise, yeah.
Was Dad playing guitar a lot and playing music a lot around the house? Can you remember a lot of that going on?
Yeah, there was always music going. And yeah, I'd have many memories of like Dad sitting on the couch with the guitar out, just jamming along, and I'd run into my room and grab my one, my little toy guitar or whatever, and just
that's great.
Try and join in. But
good times.
Was that deliberate on your part, Sean, to make sure there was music in the house?
100%, yeah. Because I was running a music shop at the time and got out of the industry that I was in prior to that, which was the mining industry. So once I got into the music game there, bought this music shop, everything sort of changed because it was all music, and then I had a band and I called it the name of the shop, and so Sam got brought up into that, and he'd come into work and hang out the back of the shop, pull out all the records, and
yeah,
it was good times. Good times. I used to bring a colouring book. He'd sit behind there, so he's always listening to music, and we had great times together. In that, to go back, it was great.
As a musician yourself now, Sam, and an artist in your own right outside of the Beatlegs, do you sometimes hear unconsciously what you've absorbed through your life play back to your own ears and find yourself going, oh, that's interesting. Where'd that come from? Or I know where that came from, but I didn't consciously call on it.
Yes, there is. At times there's little moments where, especially during like the songwriting phase, just you're mucking around, you can hear like a melody, but you feel like you've heard the melody before somewhere, so you like try and alter it into something else, and then it becomes better, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird how that works. Yeah, definitely been even after I've finished a song and I've listened to it several times, and then one day I'll be listening to it and randomly pick up, oh, that's where that's from.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like this. I didn't think about it at the time.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. Can you remember the very first time, if that's possible, where you became aware of Beatles music?
My earliest memory would probably be, I remember sitting downstairs in our old house in Townsville in front of this little TV. We had it was like a compilation. It was a DVD compilation of all their music videos, promo videos, and just, yeah, it was like
a little bootlegger DVD.
Yeah, it was
I scored somewhere in the shop or someone did it for me.
Yeah, very like cheap. But yeah, I remember that used to be like one of my favorite things to watch. I remember pulling it out the DVD cover every time and just looking at all the songs and pictures and all that on it. But yeah, and I think one of the two that like stick out to me the most are probably the Ed Sullivan performance, which I'm pretty sure it had all of the performance on it.
Yeah.
And the Paperback Rider and Rain promo videos where they're in the garden and all that. I think for those videos in particular, like the first two, I ever recall like seeing and being like, oh, this is the Beatles, you know.
He used to play Yellow Submarine for him, and he'd always want to watch the All You Need Is Love clip in the Yellow Submarine movie. He used to call it Love Love. Love. So,
It's great.
So, DVD it to that, and we'd sit and watch it. Yeah, we used to watch a lot of Beatles together. So, yeah, I made sure he had a good mixture of classic rock, Led Zeppelin, bit of Floyd, bit of Beatles.
A healthy diet.
Eric Clapton, just trying to introduce him
good mix of everything in there,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
I asked this question of Sean, your dad, and I asked it of Paul, obviously who plays Paul Van Acker, playing Paul McCartney in the Beatlegs.
Yep.
I wonder if I asked you the same question, what you might think. What do you think it is, from a musician's perspective, that's what it is about those songs and the fact that they've been built to last through so many generations and they've never been dismissed or pushed to one side? And I know there's many different things that make that up, but what do you think it is to you about that music that stands the test of time?
I think it's the honesty of the songs as well as just the joy and feeling you get from it. There's a lot of feeling in those songs, I find. And they were never all, you know, their big thing was love, but there was, you know, always something else going on, you know. There was like, this song's about love, but then here's Yellow Submarine, you know, and all they tried everything, you know.
Yeah.
Just like in this, to going back to there, sorry to interrupt there, but like, I know what you mean, like in lyrics like Run for Your Life, as opposed to Here, There and Everywhere.
Yeah, polar opposites, you know. But I think, that having that diversity really propelled them to a different point.
That playing that you do on stage in the Beatlegs, I imagine as a musician, it must reveal to you things about George as a player first. I'm just wondering, from a guitarist perspective, what have been some of the discoveries you've made about George as a player?
One of the big things that I never really paid mind to, but I've only really like started to realize the more I play the songs, is that especially early on he had a bit of like a I guess clunky and kind of choppy kind of style of playing where he wasn't too sure, especially like Please Please Me and with chunky, the Beatles it's very like almost indecisive at points, but then you get to like Hard Day's Night and you can just see the quality of his guitar parts like just become better and better, and it gets better as it goes, kind of thing. One of the things that I didn't really realize at first was just how much like country influence he had in his playing. Because you've got Roll Over Beethoven, which is just Chuck Berry, you know, and he did a lot of those Chuck Berry lines, all the early rock and roll stuff. But you go to songs like All My Loving, Can't Buy Me Love, and like I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, What Goes On. There's all like these nice country bends and very like Chet Atkinsy kind of.
About to say Chet Atkins.
Like don't really know what to call it, but there was like just little
rockabilly style.
Yeah, like finger picking, there's a lot of country that I didn't realize was going on. It was sort of just all covered over the rock pop side of things, you know?
In that space, I remember seeing the footage of George playing with Carl Perkins on that coming together celebration of Carl's music.
Yeah.
Carl Perkins and friends.
Yeah.
Ringo's on drums, Eric Clapton's there, and you can see footage of George watching Carl play, and he looks like he's 15 years old.
Yeah.
He's got this big smile, and he's not making anything about him. He's just watching Carl's hands and nodding and smiling because he's sitting next to an idol.
You would be, yeah.
And I remember
He
thinking...
can play too. He can really play. He can fingerpick like Chet Atkins too,
Yeah.
Carl Perkins, have no fear. Yeah.
And when you watch that footage, you don't see an ex-Beatle. You see a guitar player fanning out with a guitar idol.
Yeah.
And it made me realise, you really do love this stuff.
Yeah.
Probably more so than any other kind of stuff.
Well, that's all there was.
Yeah. But he had his Hoagie Carmichael passion as well. And
Yeah.
he clearly loved that kind of playing, which is clearly then why it informed some of that earlier stuff.
Yeah.
So as he evolved through his playing, can you recall a moment as a player, maybe when you were putting those songs together yourself for the band, is there a moment where you thought, you know what, this is a real shift here? He's, as you said, from 63 to 64 even, there's growth.
Yeah.
When he starts to move into another layer of expertise, can you imagine where that might be? Is there a point?
I think definitely around Rubber Soul Revolver period. I think his song "I Want to Tell You" is one of the most interesting riffs of that period. For me, it was. It was this feel that he's centered it around the A major chord, which is just that, but he's done like a pull off and goes into this nice triplet, which I found he used quite a lot going into his later Beatles stuff, into his solo stuff. There was a lot of that triplet kind of, all that kind of stuff, which is something that particular feel in a solo is something I've always gravitated towards, that veering out of a straight 4/4 into a da 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 da. So love that.
Yeah.
Which he does. There. Da 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 da. Da da da. Yeah. And then there's that real.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a Paul McCartney contribution, but again, for that just that chord in a
it's a major with a broken sort of whatever.
very very atonal.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it doesn't belong, and yet it completely belongs.
Yes.
Yeah. It's almost honky tonk in a funny kind of way.
For me, I think it fits
Interesting.
the whole vibe of the song, where it's very
I don't mind. Yeah, it's a sort of like a.
It complements the intention of the lyric.
Yes.
It does, and that's what they were so good at doing.
That I'm trying to express how I feel, but I can't quite.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
and
let
it's
you.
jingle jangle. It's like a puppeteering sort of motion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it fits emotionally into the track really good too.
Yeah.
And what an opening riff that is.
Yeah. Compared to.
Yeah. And the way the drums come in, it's such a confident sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great track.
Sean-
And it's also it's like 8 days a week. It's a bleed up in the mix. It starts off quite soft and gets louder. Have I got that right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the fade in.
Yeah.
Fade in at the start.
That's
nice too. What a beautiful intro.
Yeah.
Another fade in start.
Simple. Just 3 chords just done.
It's almost part of the magic, isn't it? It's deceptively simple at the same time.
Sweet.
It's completely inventive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean said comment in one of our first episode where he talked about, and I'm going to try and quote you from memory, but you talked about they gave you everything if you were learning to play. You can go in and listen into that songbook. You'll get blues, you'll get pop, you'll get psych pop, you'll get R&B, and then you also get an exploration of all the chords
that are necessary.
That everything you need in the toolkit
is in the Beatles toolbox.
Will be in that catalogue.
Yeah.
Noel Gallagher made a comment years ago, and I won't use his same language, but he said those Scouse guys took every chord and every lick and every melody and just left us with whatever's remains.
Yeah.
That's right, the pieces.
Yeah. But he said they took all of it.
Yeah.
And then explored all of it, and then you're just left to pick through and go, well, I'll take that, and I'll take that.
They were smart enough to do these chords like, starting songs in an F sharp minor, for instance, like All My Lovin', 1, 2, 3, 4, dun, dun, close your, a minor chord, just like that. No intro, no build, just
straight into the song, no intro. It's they definitely that was another one of their strengths. I think just playing around with the structure of the songs and like, hey, we don't actually need another verse here. Let's just go straight into a solo.
Yeah.
And McCartney's lyrics straight off, close your eyes. And that's the start of that song. Straight off the bat.
It's interesting that song came up in the first episode and we're talking about it again because it obviously stands out as one of the first absolute classics.
100%.
Because it's such an assured
it's a beautiful
piece of
melody.
music.
The chord arrangements are great. What John's doing on the rhythm, playing with the shuffle. What George, keeping the song chugling like a train on a track, and yet it's a song about a love departure for a period of time or whatever it is. But so it's really a love song.
Yes.
But with this, something about All My Lovin', it's an amazing song, and George's solo.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Because that's got a country flavour too.
Yes.
It's very Chet Atkins.
Yes.
And Carl Perkins, 100%. And he's using that influence. Sammy will play it for you.
Oh, that is beautiful.
I'll do a better take, but
it's a beauty. Yeah, it is a great. To you, I will say to you, my loving darling, I'll be true. Here we go.
That is
tasty,
beautiful.
man.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so tasty.
When you start to listen to George as a writer, and obviously you've both been in bands and professional musicians yourselves, a young guy like that, getting his chops and being in the personality mix of Lennon and McCartney, who are obviously, I think George even says in Anthology, by the time I started writing, they'd written all their worst songs, and now they were becoming good and great, whereas I was just at the beginning of it. When you listen to something like Don't Bother Me,
it's a great song, yeah.
On the second album, there's some wonderful playing and structure in that song, isn't there, from a musician's perspective? Could you talk about Don't Bother Me?
I agree. It's I think for me, that song is different in regards to like the aspect where it doesn't have the same traditional like chord turnarounds that you would in a normal song, because it's very major the whole way, but still keeps that like minor attitude to it, you know.
That's Bother Me. That brings George's mood right into it.
Yeah.
That change into a D, is it? That's a nice change. Is that out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then he goes to this thing.
'Cause I know she'll always be the only girl for me.
I've just realised on that
back to
part,
B major, yeah.
Got it. I mean, It's interesting when I hear you doing that and then doing a little bit of the vocal. It's interesting to me now that McCartney didn't come in over the top and lift on that.
On the harmony part.
Yeah, on the harmony. It almost feels like Paul should be in there, but he obviously doesn't need him either.
Yeah, yeah. It's a song about one person.
There you go.
And George does it so well.
That's great.
Yeah.
What do you hear in him as a player by the time you get to that second album? Because when I see you play that now, it feels a little more complex than I thought it was. Was he already on a way there, doing interesting things?
I think so, yeah. There was... You could see the beginnings of what was to come in those early songs. Even in, like... Till There Was You, like, just the...
Till There Was You is just...
That's
amazing. It's beautiful. Yeah.
As a player, can you imagine what was he?
That's very like
there's Spanish influence in it.
It's Spanish, but it's also like jazzy.
Yes,
you know? It's a very
Segovia runs.
Huh.
Yeah,
who was doing that
first? Yeah,
when you start to get into to jump ahead a little bit, obviously George was pretty quiet during Pepper. We Get Within You Without You. But by the time you get into White Album, George, again as a player, who's the George Harrison you think is in that album, for example, as a guitarist?
Completely different. You know, I think by that time he was hanging around with Clapton and all those other contemporaries, and obviously learned a few tricks because you listen to some of the solos on Abbey Road and something, and they're just so much more tidier, clean, and played more with intention. It's a bit more like soulful, I guess. Yeah,
especially Savoy Truffle.
That's a consequence of him taking in new influences, and
yeah, I think so. Yeah, and also with his songwriting as well, taking a huge upward, motion there.
You're a songwriter yourself, so can you talk to that? By the time you do get to the White Album as a writer, can you describe what you think is happening there in his evolution, and give an example of maybe where there's an impressive point in the structure of his songwriting?
Not that it's much of a guitar song, but it's also a bit of a deeper cut. But Long, Long, Long off the White Album is very... same with Blue Jayway. Like, they're very... drony, dirgy kind of songs, which at that point I don't think you were hearing a lot of in the pop realm, which I find very unique, and just and how you evoke these very dreamy landscapes. Yeah.
Especially Blue Jay Way.
100%.
Yeah.
Even the film clip in it sort of delivers it as well.
It's almost haunting, that song. It's
especially with the reverse tracks. All that in it just makes it even more haunting.
It's almost a dream.
Yeah.
What about when you get to Moments? I always think it's one of the most underrated tracks in their catalogue, which is It's All Too Much.
Yes.
When you go back with fresh ears and just give that the time it deserves, that's a masterful piece of psychedelic
for me
rock.
Yes, for me that is like the ultimate George Harrison song, Beatles era George Harrison song.
Especially for me, it's the classic psychedelic song for the Beatles. To me, for that period, for George, definitely, is All Too Much.
That's a big statement. Can you unpack it? Why would you say that about that track? I agree. I'm just curious what it is for you.
For me, it's just, it's one of their longest songs for starters. So it's like very kind of prog in that aspect,
and it's full.
And it's always full, and there's never a dull moment. All the while, it's just focusing on one G chord the whole song.
Is that right?
The whole 8 minutes just G.
Well, there you go.
Take a look light shining on the mountain. You can play the whole song just holding a G chord, you know. Everywhere is what you make for us to take it to. It only diverges to like C.
Too much. So I could play that.
It's just, yes, you could play it.
So that's obviously what's sitting at the bottom of the tray, and then he's layering it as...
Oh, there's trumpets, there's horns, there's...
It's a big... Yeah, it's like it's psychedelic.
It's an
fanfare,
epic.
You know.
100%.
It's the perfect bookend to that psychedelic era before they went back to their roots.
That's a great statement, because I think you've hit it on the head. That is really a point where that psychedelic era has been completed, isn't it?
Well, even the film clip for In Yellow Submarine, where that song
100%.
comes in, it's everything's rejuvenating again too.
Yeah.
So they go hand in hand.
Huh,
When you watch that clip, you wouldn't pick a better clip for that song.
I think it's the last song on side A of Yellow Submarine, which is really their last, I guess, psych album, if it's really an album, you know.
That's
it's
true
a soundtrack,
too.
But yeah.
Then it goes to the orchestral on B. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah, and what a great way to finish off that album too.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been easy to be between, I think it was Randy Bachman, have I got that right? Bachman Turner Overdrive?
Yeah,
he had a solo album out a few years ago, and I think the track was Between Two Mountains.
Oh, okay.
And he said it lyrically, it's about George. And George between two mountains. And it's McCartney and Lennon.
Oh, right,
and
of course.
I exist between two mountains.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, what a great way to put it. And he said that I was trying to understand from a musician's perspective, what must it have been like to be in a band where you were caught between two mountains and you're trying to have a voice and not only be a player, be a lyricist, and you've got two of the greatest voices in rock history.
Yeah, yeah.
Well in that band.
Songwriters.
And songwriters.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then McCartney's a player. So
the good thing about them, though, they all loved each other, and I think it was there's never any grudges about.
They encouraged each other, you know. Even you know, the whole story with McCartney and trying to get Ringo to do the last note with little help from his friends, you know,
which was literally done with a little help.
Yeah.
when you get to George as a vocalist and you're on stage capturing those songs not only as a player, is there a particular song or a particular period of songs in the Beatlegs set list for you as George that stick out? We go, I love singing this, I love playing this.
Definitely the later stuff, the like Abbey Road, White Album stuff. Something is a really nice song to sing because he just delivers with such like a delicate, smooth delivery. And then in the chorus, he kind of ramps it up a bit and gets a bit more aggressive and then hits this, I don't know, just really, you know.
Yeah,
his vocals do soar there too, don't they?
They soar.
Yeah. What's your take on when you get to again, Spotify, I think it's been number one for years, the number one most played Beatles tune.
Here Comes the Sun, yeah.
You know, on one album, he writes two of the best songs out of the entire catalogue.
Yeah.
as they check out.
Yeah. I'll just leave you with this.
I'll just leave you these two.
Yeah.
And then in 2024, it'll still be the most played out of your entire catalogue.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You talk about growing between two mountains. I'm just curious. That is a song that is almost his Mount Everest in that band.
Well, here comes the sun in between the mountains.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Absolutely,
that's what it is. What's that song like for you as a player? I'm just curious if we were to unpack that as a really big achievement for him.
Yeah, I think even in composition, you know, like there's that bit where it goes from straight 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 goes into 7 8, which is I think that's the only Beatles song with a 7/8 part in it, you know. And that's George, yeah. But also it's just such that song just like radiates positivity, you know. You can't not smile, you know, listening to it.
Just the music and the keyboard in the background.
The Moog, little Moog touches. again, another
Finesse.
innovation. It's
And just to get it's one thing to write a great song and sing it and perform it, but to get the layered background tone of it is as you know yourself, that's the art.
Well, a lot of songs can die in production, right?
That's right, correct. They can have they might be lacking, but then again, you don't know what you accept it as it is anyway. But they were very clever with it. It's the emotion. It tangles with your emotions. Beatles music. They're really clever with the way they can blend sounds.
Where you've got to give George Martin credit, because there's a lot of space in that recording of "Here Comes the Sun." It breathes.
Absolutely. Yeah, yes.
And nothing outstays its welcome.
Yeah,
there's that
perfect.
footage of Danny Harrison in the studio with George Martin, and they play at that point
It's almost like the sun going down at the end of "Here Comes the Sun."
It is.
Yeah.
They're at the mixing desk in Abbey Road, and George brings a fader up, and it's the electric guitar solo from "Here Comes the Sun."
yes.
Oh, right.
And they're all looking at each other, and it's such a smart decision that wasn't in there, and yet it's tasty.
It can break it. It can break a song. Can't it?
It's a tasty solo.
Yeah, right.
And when you hear it, you think, "Oh wow, listen to that! It's an electric solo in the middle of that."
Yeah.
And George Martin makes the story of we just decided you don't need
Doesn't
that.
need to be there. The song's strong enough.
But for a player for George to go, I don't need to do anything flashy here.
No,
This is
he's already done. George has already done that.
yeah.
It's not necessary to over. And Sam does on a lot of his music as well. You listen to, because Sam's a great player, and I'm listening to his tracks. I said, okay, no solo in that. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's not always about, I've got to put a solo in it. There's no rules in music.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the story, obviously, and the peak and the.
Yeah, I think especially with his solo playing, he never overplayed, never underplayed, and anything he played was complementing to what everyone else was doing.
Yeah. I think it was Ringo that might have said, I'm paraphrasing it, that I played in service to the song. And George obviously did the same thing.
100%.
I play in service to it,
Yes.
rather than I'm playing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, this is my feature, now this is what I do. No, it's everything fits.
Yeah, and it's just they must agree upon it. Now, I'm sure they might have said, hey, why don't you try this like McCartney did with Ticket to Ride? But I suppose it's more into the drumming side of things. But yeah.
Or when you get to the classic story, right, of George doing those little callbacks to Paul's melody line in Hey Jude. As they're playing, and Paul telling him, no, I don't want any of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then bringing it up during the Letter B sessions, and that classic comment about when Paul says, it's like, hey, Jude, I always feel like I'm having a go at you. I'm not having a go at you. And George going, well, I'll play if you want me to play. I won't play. That's a callback to that argument where George was doing these little runs, hey, Jude. Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
Paul's like, oh, no, I don't want any of that. So,
Yeah.
sure.
Paul's got a vision in his head of what the songs. So they all have their own visions, but there's no rules to the sound. Is where I was going before. There's obviously a story in music, is what I meant to say. But you've got to experiment and say that works, that doesn't. There's a time. It's a process of writing a song and then agreeing on the final product and what should stay and what shouldn't.
I think
They just made the right calls.
Yeah.
and obviously I think it's what felt good at the end of the day. I don't, you could play something really flashy and be like, that is awesome, and it sounds amazing, but it just doesn't sit right with the track. So, you try something else or you leave it out completely. That's what I've found doing my stuff, but yeah.
What has George taught you as a vocalist? I always hear longing in him.
Yeah, there is like a longing kind of, yeah, I know what you mean. For me, I think he never tried to really be anyone different. Like, I mean, because you look at McCartney, who was like a vocal chameleon, he could do anything,
Vocally, yeah.
Screaming to just balladeering, soft, stuff. But yeah, George, I think he was just, very honest vocalist. Like,
That's a good way to put it.
didn't try and overshoot for things, just delivered to the song.
I've heard you many times on stage and seen you play and do things like If I Needed Someone. I just wanted to jump back in time really quick as we get to the end of our time together. But when you get to a tune like that, and there's obviously a big Birds influence in that piece as well, I guess it seems to my ears it's busy from a player's perspective, and then you've got the vocal element as well. What's a track like that for you to play?
For me, I feel like that track, it's hard. It's playing it on stage. It's actually the vocals are so easy going for me anyway. It's more so the playing the guitar part and getting that whole that right and just holding it the whole time. There's a lot of pinky work.
Yes.
Finger work going on just to get the that he does, but the vocals are just, most of the time it's just
So we're all singing in unison. In that track.
And so for me, it's like it's very easy.
Not unison, but I mean in harmony.
Yeah,
beg your pardon. Yeah.
It's easy to hold the vocals down on a track like that, and the melody for it doesn't really get too complex either. It's kind of just lingers around the same 3-4 notes. Yeah, just 4 notes.
Wow, there you go.
So it's very easy vocally, but the guitar playing is where it'll trip you up trying to do it at the same time. But yeah, just his approach to the actual sound of the sound he wanted to get out of his guitar. I think he was always like pushing for something different. I've read a comment that he hated the way his guitar sounds, like on all those early records, especially where it's just clean,
chunky
into a Vox amp, and that's it. I think one of the first points where he, got to try something different was like, I Need You and Yes It Is with the volume pedal. He's got these nice volume
swells,
all that. And
it almost sounds like a keyboard. That
it's a very on I Need You, especially because he's using his 12-string, which is obviously it's a normal guitar with a whole other octave added to it. Put through a volume pedal, and it's gets like a very organy, swelling kind of tone to it.
Especially in the outro, and it's sort of the last note, and that is so evident in that whole song. It's part of the track that it stands out.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much I
yeah.
And then all the way, and especially at the end,
the effect is such an important part of that hook as
That's what I was.
It's such an important part, and
it's a standout.
Yeah, and he wasn't afraid to like try like other stuff going into. I mean, he was one of the first people to, I think, plug a guitar into a Leslie cabinet. And that's, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. On Here Comes the Sun as well, there's that little that comes in towards the end. That's all Leslie cabinet.
It is, and it's beautiful, and it just puts the finesse on the song.
And I think that kind of, the Leslie cabinet tone actually kind of became his sound more in Let It Be. Let It Be towards the start of his solo career. That was really something he liked to lean into. Just make guitar not sound like a guitar. I think there's another comment I remember reading where I can't remember what the song was, but they asked George Martin to make it sound less like a guitar and more like an organ, and so I think he just compressed it like super hard, so it just had this really clicky. On Nowhere Man, that solo is very
top end.
It's squashed, and
it sort of goes slam, slam, slam.
You can hear the rattle in the strings.
They're on the Fenders too.
Yeah,
so that's when they were playing Fender at that point.
Yeah, his approach to not having a guitar sound like a guitar was just always.
It's 3-dimensional. When you're listening to the Beatles music, and his guitar, like I said, it comes out at you. It stands out, especially that solo in Nowhere Man.
Yeah.
Just like bang, and it sort of comes out, and it's such a great solo, especially with a harmonic at the end. And
Yeah.
who does that?
That solo is probably one of his best in terms of, an all-round guitar solo. Like, oh,
Yeah, please.
jump on this.
It's a great solo.
He starts kind of like in a middle register. And then works his way down to the bottom register, and then ties it all off with that
Oh,
little
beautiful.
harmonic. So he covers, high, middle, low, all in one solo.
And to top it off with a ping, the
it's
little
like
harmonic on the
it's
end.
like the cherry on top.
Yeah, of the solo.
As a player, do you find him
Perfect.
surprising, or do you, as a player, think, "Oh, I know where you're going. I can see how you've unlocked that"? Because if you were there, you would have thought the obvious place to go now is here. Or do you get surprised and go, "Oh, that's not an obvious choice. That's an interesting choice."
Yeah, there is a lot of surprise in his lead lines. Just that, even the slide down there, it's a. This slide down. Like,
Yeah.
just.
It's nice, isn't it?
What must that have
Where
been like in a
does that come from?
That's right.
I was going to say, if you're in a studio and it's 1965 and he plays you that, and let's say it's Lennon's song and he's playing it back to him, saying, "I think I've got
Yeah.
this." What that must have been like hearing it for the first time
It's
at that, either at Kenwood or with her in the studio.
Well, who's doing harmonic at the end of any solo?
Yeah.
Or who's doing a harmonic period?
in a solo around that time, it's.
Yeah. And it almost sounds nautical to me. It used to sound like a beacon at the end of that.
Yeah.
Oh, just like it was. Yeah. That's when I first listened to that solo, because I love that solo.
Yeah. No, please go on.
I think going back to that All My Lovin' solo as well, it really took me by surprise, because there's that bit at the end. He does that. There's this weird little
Yeah.
interval jump. And
Outside the country picking.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just this weird little, this bit. And for me to, just that on its own is very just discordant and atonal. And to, let's do that. It's just round it off, and it's just like,
That's great.
Yeah, he's a clever player.
I still can't really wrap my head around that. But it fits in the song, and it just makes sense when you play it now.
It's awesome playing, eh?
It's great. Is there a Beatles album, and I know it can change on any day, and it's the same question we'll ask anyone we sit with. Is there a Beatles album you just fundamentally go back to and it just stands the test of time? They all do, but is there one that is there one that you go, "Oh, you know what, if I had to, I'll always fall back to this"?
I'll always go back to Revolver. I think Revolver is the perfect middle. It's the middle point of their career. They've just finished. The Beatlemania is kind of fizzling out, and they're wanting to get on
serious
with more experimental stuff. And for me, it's like the perfect cut. You've got pop on there, rock,
Psych.
Look at the beginnings of Psych. You've got
Angie Bird can sing on top of everything else on
Angie
there.
Bird Can Sing, which might as well be like the first hard rock song with that dual guitar line.
And even the verses that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And yeah, just even like that's shredding, you know.
Yeah.
For me, I consider that a shred. This bit actually trips me up a lot when we play it live. That bit at the end. So.
Wow, it's right up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right up there, that note.
Go on, get up there.
Go on, get up there.
No, it's great to hear. Revolver. Okay, so that one sticks out. Can you talk a little bit for people that might be interested? Can we talk a little bit about Echo Wave?
Yeah.
And rather than me do it, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Echo Wave is and where people could find that?
Well, Echo Wave is my project. It's my little studio project. I do all the recording in my room, my little studio, and bit psyche, bit power pop, kind of just pop rock stuff. You've
just finished an East Coast tour through the States, and if people wanted to find you, I guess it's Spotify's the quick first stop.
Yes, Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much any streaming platform we will be on. Echo Wave, it's Echo and Wave put together into the one word. There's a lot of confusion. We've had people call it Eco Wave.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all sorts of other stuff. But yeah, it's the one thing I actually try to say to everyone. It's like, it's Echo Wave, put it together, Echo Wave.
So you've got a balance of your original material and living that life and touring and playing, and then you've got, I guess, the fantasy of being George in one of the better Beatle tribute acts in the country. So you've got musically these two parts of you that are engaged.
I think, I'm getting I'm getting my outlet, but also my sort of kick out of, being able to play such good songs.
What's the lessons, do you think, out of the songwriting of Lennon, McCartney and Harrison and the playing that inform your own creative process? And I know you have many influences.
Yeah.
Could you put your finger on where the influence might be there from the story of those guys?
Like you said earlier, like the Noel Gallagher comment, they took everything. So it's kind of like everything you kind of do ends up having a Beatlesque quality. I think everything I end up doing has a Beatlesque quality, but regardless of if I try to aim for that or not.
It's in your influence, like it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Sammy, since he was born, he's been on my knee with me, using him as a puppet playing drums.
Yeah.
Even as a baby.
Sticks in hand.
Yeah, guitars. As soon as I used to get his hand and get him to strum my guitar, you probably don't remember any of this, but he was sitting on the bed and I get his hand and strum over the guitar while I'm playing chords.
Yeah.
So he got the idea. So, and the Beatle music, obviously, he's been listening to it since he was a baby because that was I believe it helps with intelligence and it helps your brain, and especially with Beatle music. It's all positive.
Yeah.
What a great way to enhance young ears.
You go back and listen.
It's all about peace and love.
It was about peace and bloody love again.
But you should do a bit of that today. Anyway.
But yeah, I think another thing as well, like if there's one thing that I try to not directly emulate, but try to keep the same thought process around, harmonies and vocal arrangements. Beach Boys are another big influence on me. And just, the way they do their harmonies is just exceptional. But Beatles and Beach Boys, the way they set them out and, not overdoing them, because sometimes you'd have, just two harmonies going, the one main line and the support, or you could change that support line to a lower harmony that could emphasize like the rhythm guitar or something like that.
They were similar to the Beatles. They started off with the rock and roll roots.
Yeah.
And they got creative in their own way musically as well.
Before we go out, there's only one way to go out.
Singing! 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love you. A, B, C, D. Can I bring my friends to tea? Lost the alphabet. I love you. Bum, 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 bum. Sail the ship. Chop the tree. Skip the rope. Look at me. All together now. All together now.
All together now.
All together now. All together now. All together now. Okay. Hooroo.
We hope you enjoyed the show. You know the name, look up the socials. You'll find us on Facebook and Instagram where we can all come together. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe and spread the word. It all helps raise the profile of the You Can Talk to Me podcast. Thanks for listening.